Welcome back to Self Love Ignited. Today on the podcast, it is a short, sharp, sweet one, and I am simply answering one question. Is self love a fad? What do you think? My name is Katie Allen, and this is Self Love Ignited. Let's get to it. Welcome back. On today's episode, I am answering what seems to be a fairly simple question, but I feel like needs a little bit more detail. And that question is self-love a fad? Is self-love a fad? Now, I was asked this question a couple months back when I was being interviewed on another podcast, and it actually took me by surprise. It was the first time that I'd ever been asked this question. And it took me a couple of minutes of sort of thinking about it before I came up with an answer. But this being Self-Love Ignited, this is a really important topic. So is self-love a fad? What do I think? My genuine, honest answer, I hope so. I hope so. I hope that in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, we do not need this anymore. I hope that we don't need support with self-love. I hope that we, and I say we being myself included, right? Society, I hope that we do not need support to create really happy, healthy, thriving relationships with ourselves. But do I think that's what it's going to be? It's not looking promising. It's not looking promising. And I say that because we need to look at the challenges that get us to having this troubled relationship with ourselves. Like, what causes it in the first place, right? Because if self-love is a fad, if doing this work on helping people learn to love themselves, if this is a fad, then that means that essentially whatever is causing the issue needs to be resolved. And if there is not something causing the issue, then we don't need a solution to it, right? It stops being an issue. It's a non-issue. But what causes the problem? What causes people to have really challenging relationships with themselves? And essentially, society, programming, right? Diet culture. Yep, that's it. And is that going anywhere anytime soon? Nuh-uh. That is a multi-billion, like tens of billions, maybe even more dollar industry a year. We have been tricked, programmed. We have been convinced that there is something wrong with us. We've been convinced that we need to look a certain way, be a certain way, that we are too much of something, that we are not enough of something. We have all been convinced of this. And when we think that we don't measure up, when we start comparing ourselves, when we start judging ourselves, that is when we lose the self-love, right? That is when we get into self-judgment, self-loathing, whether that be about ourselves, our personalities, or our bodies, or both. In my case, it was both, very, very much both. So there's all of these things, right? There are a lot of people in the world who are benefiting by people hating themselves. There are a lot of people in the world who are making a lot of money out of our self-hatred. There are a lot of people in the world benefiting when you look in the mirror and you say, oh, I hate what I see. Oh, I need another diet. There's people out there going, cha-ching. Yes, we got another one. We got another one. And that is why this work of self-love, I hope that it is a fad, but I don't think it will be. Because as long as there are people benefiting, as long as we keep buying into the idea that we don't measure up, that we are not good enough, then this work is going to be needed. Because you know what? You can only follow that path of trying to be somebody else, trying to look like somebody else, trying to change your personality. You can only do that for so long before you, either just give up and just go, well, I guess I'm never going to be good enough. And I'm staying on the hamster wheel my whole life. I'm constantly going to be running. I'm always going to be trying to be somebody different. And that's just what I'm going to do. Or you wake up and you look around and you go, no, thank you. No, thank you. I want something else because this is not okay. It's not okay for me to keep hating myself. It's not okay for me to keep beating myself up. It's not okay for me to keep judging myself and criticizing myself and just beating myself into the ground time after time. This is not okay. There has to be something else. There has to be something better, right? And that is this work. That is the work of self-love. That is why this podcast was invented. That is why I do what I do. Because when you wake up and you're looking around going, I want something else. I don't want to keep hating on myself. I don't want to keep beating myself up. I want to get out of the rat race of self-hate, and I want to live a life that is amazing and that lights me up, and I want to be my own friend. Right? That's why this podcast exists. So is self-love a fad? I hope so. I genuinely hope that this work is not needed long-term. I hope that the world changes, that the world stops trying to convince people that they're not good enough, that they need to change, that they need to be more of something, less of something. I hope that that changes. Do I think it's going to change? Not anytime soon. As long as there are people making money from it, as long as there are multi-billion-dollar corporations out there benefiting from our self-hatred, it's not going anywhere. So what can you do about it? It's called self-love because it's about you, right? It's about you and your relationship with yourself. And this movement of us being our own friends, this movement of us backing ourselves, being our own allies, being our own cheerleaders, this is a one person at a time thing. So what can you do? Start. Learn to be your own friend. Learn to treat yourself with kindness, compassion, respect. Learn to back yourself. Learn to take risks. Learn to hold yourself in high esteem. Learn what makes you worthy. I'll give you a hint. It's not your body, not your intelligence, not your knowledge. What makes you worthy is you, just existing. You are inherently worthy. You do not need to earn it. And when you start to do this work and you inspire others, and you talk to your friends about it, and you talk to your sisters about it, and you talk to your daughters about it, and you talk to your colleagues about it, that is how we change the world. And that is how we make this work no longer needed in the future, so that future generations don't ever have to suffer from self-hatred. They don't ever have to look in the mirror and be convinced that they are the most disgusting thing in the world. I genuinely want that for the future. I don't want future generations to have this. So do the work on yourself, spread the word amongst the people who you love, share resources such as this podcast with your community so that we can change the world. And so that self-love gets to be just a blip on the radar, right? Let's hope. Let's hope. I want this work to have to, maybe not have to, I want this work to be able to dissolve and morph into something else. And I want self-love to just be a given. I want it to be an automatic. And I truly believe that that can happen. I really, really do.